Democratic presidential candidates are gathering for a major liberal forum today. Reverend Barber co-hosting the Poor People's Campaign Presidential Forum. MSNBC's own Joy Reid will be there. The candidates are expected to tackle poverty, inequality, and discrimination on immigration, which is already a huge issue for Democrats on the trail.
On the issue of immigration, he has also defied who we are morally and who we say we are to the world.
A humanitarian crisis created by this president through cruel policies like family separation.
The America I see values basic human decency, not snatching children from their parents.
It's a disturbing picture. They're all on concrete floors in cages.
This is a moral vandalism on the ideals of our country.
A moral vandalism. You know, of the many controversies of this Trump era, perhaps no policy has drawn more condemnation than family separations and the caging of children, including this news story about Trump officials who split up this 4-month-old child from his parents. This is the youngest child separation that we know about ever. His parents say he was different when they were united about half a year later. This is documented in new footage from the New York Times.
I remember just him like nuzzling his head up under my chin. Like I knew in the next hour he was gonna be gone.
Copilul era foarte speriat de noi. Nu ne cunoștea, plângea când îl luam în braț.
Era schimbat, mi se părea că cei care nu-i copilul nu. Cei că altul copil.
He was different. These are now common stories. 13,000 migrant children under detention now. Numbers that have the Trump administration increasingly looking for new places to hold them, now even turning to a military base that once served as a Japanese-American internment camp. Now, while protests and court rulings have beat back some parts of these policies, Donald Trump's doubling down, hiring hardliners to replace border officials who he thought didn't defend him and these policies enough, such as former Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen.
Are we putting children in cages? I just want you to admit that the cages exist.
Sir, they're not cages.
Does it differ from the cages you put your dogs in when you let them stay outside? Is it different?
Yes.
In what sense?
It's larger. It has facilities. It provides room to sit, to stand, to lay down.
So did my dog's cage.
It's larger than a dog's cage. Now, Trump replaced her with acting Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan, who planned to install former Immigration and former Chief and Fox News analyst Tom Homan as the head of ICE. And they also tapped Ken Cuccinelli to run immigration services, doubling down while still trying to spin and lie about the children who are held in cages. These images and stories have proven too much, even for this administration, which is why the former Homeland Security Director claimed they were larger than cages for animals, and it's why another Trump official insisted under oath that these detention centers are basically a, quote, summer camp.
The best way to describe them is to be more like a summer camp. These individuals have access to 24/7 food and water. There's basketball courts, there's exercise classes, there's soccer fields that we put in there.
It's beyond Orwellian for the government to tell you criminal detention is actually summer camp. And the administration is clearly struggling with the reality of these policies. More than any others, we're seeing the culture react and condemn this kind of policy and the spin defending them, a development that may not only be bad for Donald Trump politically, but could spark a wider effort to reform immigration policy and how children are treated. Now, this story is in the news tonight because of that baby in detention and because of the 13,000 other children, and for another reason, because of the worldwide premiere of this new music video. And the kids you see on your screen are actors, and they may not look exactly like many of the kids in detention, but they are kids just the same. Humans just the same. This is footage from a provocative new video by the Chicago musician Vic Mensa, rebuking the Trump administration by taking its words literally. This new song is called Camp America because Trump officials tell us this is just like any camp American parents might send their American kids to.
The best way to describe them is to be more like a summer camp.
Like a summer camp. Now, let's see a short part of this new music video, which is already being dubbed shocking, provocative, and bold.
So much fun, you lose count of the days, playing hard cups and we're sipping you up. Yeah, you could get lost at Camp America.
You could get lost at Camp America, but would you want to? Now, this new video ends by reminding everyone there are 13,000 immigrant children in custody. It asks, what if it was your kid? What if it was your kid? An interesting question. Vic Mensa is that artist, and well, I'd love to discuss this with him, and he's here for an exclusive.
How you doing?
Vic Mensa, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Why are you tackling this in your music right now?
I think like the rest of the nation and the world, when I saw those comments by Matthew Albence, who's now director of ICE, saying that these immigrant detention centers, which we actually are referring to as immigrant prisons because that's really what they are, our prisons, were more like a summer camp than a prison, which is, you know, asinine on so many levels, but also creatively it inspired me because I feel that the duty of art is to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. And this is a situation where you have a lot of people way too comfortable about atrocities that are being exacted upon children. Then you have a whole other side of the nation that is very disturbed by this. You know what I'm saying? So musically, I wanted to marry these worlds, and being that my father is a Ghanaian immigrant, and I have, you know, that I owe my existence to immigration. I think that the fear of immigration that has existed in American history from the first day, I just find it to be wrong.
Yeah, and as you say, immigrants can come from anywhere. Human rights are important because they're universal. But you didn't just write the song. You're behind the video that people see is, as you say, quite disturbing, but also quite a choice. Why is it mostly white children that you imagine in those cages?
Yeah. So as I was coming up with the concept, I wanted to display the situations that are really happening in these immigrant prisons, where kids have reported being tortured with plastic bags over their heads. Families have reported being left with no option but to drink toilet water. Kids have been sexually assaulted. All of these things that are obviously just human rights violations, but are looked over because they're done to people of color, and they're done to immigrants that are poor and are coming from war-torn countries. None of those things would be allowed to fly were it America's prized white children at stake.
That's powerful when you put it like that. And so you are hoping that people watch this video and they feel how?
I'm hoping that people watch this video and they think about how immigrants are treated in this nation. They think about how people of color are treated in this nation, and also that we can make the through line, the tie-in from these immigrant prisons to mass incarceration, you know, because let's not forget that this is not really a new issue or a new occurrence. 50% of the kids that are detained in America, American children, are black children. We have a history of Japanese internment camps, which they just turned one of those into an immigrant prison. We had American Indian boarding schools where sexual violence was rampant and cultural genocide existed. It's like this is all tied into kids being detained in Palestine. It's overall xenophobia that's just kind of dictating the way that our world is working right now.
So you put that so in such a strong way. I want to ask you kind of a funny question, which is, coming out of hip hop, how do you feel both being a messenger for that pain, as you say, it's coming out of even your own family experience, telling people you're an immigrant, and a country that is both fascinated by those stories, but also often scared of the black male story or scared of what's happening in the inner city? How do you see, like, the way you're playing that role out?
You know, I think my role has always been an empathetic role, and I have empathy for others, even if I don't personally experience what they experience. And I think that when you start to make a human connection, when you see people as numbers and statistics, then it could get lost. You can forget that we're all human beings. I think that's what happens with Chicago oftentimes, and I've seen Chicago be used as a media scapegoat for black male criminalization or criminality, and look at Chicago. Remember when Trump used to love to say that? He's like, don't look over here while I'm robbing American people. Look at Chicago, you know? And so I know what it feels like to be marginalized as just a number or a statistic, and that's what I feel is happening in our border right now, is that a lot of people are just being marginalized into numbers, when no, these are actual human beings, and what's happening to these kids is scientifically proven to have adverse effects to their development as they grow.
Which is why human rights experts are telling us this is literally abuse. You mentioned Donald Trump. Let's play a little bit of Donald Trump and some of the interaction he has, as you know, with the culture, because he is fixated on aspects of Hollywood and music. Take a look.
We don't need Jay-Z or Beyonce. We don't need Lady Gaga.
Instead of talking Puerto Rico with gun reform from Nevada, all these horrible tragedies and he's bored and would rather cause a Twitter storm with the Packers.
The Women's March this weekend, and you hear Madonna's here.
Honestly, she's disgusting. It's disappointing and it's hurtful. This is the leader of the free world speaking like this.
Do you think artists and celebrities have a special way of getting his attention?
Well, you remember, rap used to love Trump.
Yes.
Trump was practically a rapper at a point in time. Like, Trump was partying with all the rappers. I mean, there were still songs being made about Donald Trump up to like 2012, 13.
He used to go on G-Unit Radio.
Obama's not an American, he's a Muslim. And then that's when all of us were kind of like, you know, and I feel like we started to tiptoe away. But obviously, Donald Trump he's a reality TV star. That's what he's doing now on the highest level possible. And I mean, shows in the job that he's doing as far as, you know, policy and legislation. It's like this is not what he's built for.
Not what he's built for. I see on your shirt, we could show here, Camp America, best summer ever.
I wanted to shout this out because I did this shirt in collaboration with an organization called KIND, which is Kids in Need of Defense. So you can go to my Instagram, Vic Mensa on Instagram, to find a shirt, or represent.com. All proceeds will be donated to legal defense for immigrant and refugee children.
Vic Mensa, shine a light on an issue that a lot of people care about. I think you're going to continue to get responses. Thank you for coming on The Beat, man.
I appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely appreciate you being here. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.